Good morning, Colonel. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom, and everything stopped. Not the clerk, not the lawyers, not my daughter Anna, and certainly not Vivian Hart, my mother-in-law, who had been smiling like she already owned the room. When Judge Mallory said Colonel, her face lost all color. I kept my hands folded. 3 months earlier in Norfolk, I was making chicken soup when a certified letter arrived. Since my husband Daniel died, his family had turned every conversation into a fight dressed up as concern. Vivian criticized the funeral flowers, said I sold Daniel's boat too fast, and called me emotional. The petition claimed I had manipulated Daniel into leaving the lake house to me. That cedar cabin on Smith Mountain Lake had been our refuge for 32 summers. During his cancer, it was the only place where he could still breathe. He would sit on the dock in a navy blanket while I read beside him. Anna found me at the kitchen table and told me to settle. She said Grandma had money and lawyers. I looked up and told her I was Daniel's family. Daniel and I had agreed to keep my military career quiet after retirement. I wanted a life that no longer demanded blood. A week later, Vivian invited everyone to Sunday dinner. Her riverfront house glittered with chandeliers and polished silver. She sat like a queen while her son Marcus barely looked at me. "Legal matters can get expensive," Vivian said. "You must feel overwhelmed." "I'm managing." "You should have accepted our offer." Marcus muttered, "Dad always intended the property to stay with us." I looked at him. Daniel made his wishes very clear. Vivian dabbed her mouth. "That's what your lawyers claim." "My lawyers?" I asked. "I don't have any," she smiled. "You were always convinced you were smarter than the rest of us, Margaret." Then she said, "You were just a wife in the end." I set down my fork. "I'll see you in court." She laughed softly. "You're finished." That night, I opened the old leather case in my closet. Inside were my commission papers, my military records, and the silver eagle insignia I had not touched in years. I held it and remembered who I had been before grief made me smaller. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in gray slacks and a navy blouse, tied my silver hair back, and met Anna outside the courthouse. She handed me coffee and wore the worried look of a daughter watching her mother walk into a storm. "Mom, last chance, just settle," I glanced at her. "Your father hated bullies." Inside, Vivian stood near security in a cream suit, pearls flashing at her throat. 3 attorneys hovered beside her. When she saw me, that cold smile returned. Margaret actually came. A lawyer glanced at me, then at the empty space beside me where my legal team should have been. There was no one. I sat alone. At 9, Judge Mallory entered. He looked at me and said, "Good morning, Colonel." The courtroom went silent. Vivian's smile vanished. Judge Mallory opened the file. Retired Colonel Evelyn Shaw served in the Judge Advocate General's Corps for more than 20 years. Vivian's attorney cleared his throat. "We were unaware." "That," the judge said, "would be an understatement." I answered the court's questions calmly, while Vivian's side tried to paint me as a dependent widow. They claimed I isolated Daniel during his illness. I asked one question after another. Did you interview the hospice nurses? Did you review visitation logs? Did you speak to Daniel's oncologist? Each answer was no. Then I submitted Exhibit D, Daniel's signed estate letter, written 8 months before he died. He stated that the lake house belonged solely to me and that any later challenge would be against his wishes. He had even written that he was acting freely, without pressure. Vivian went pale. "That's impossible." "No," I said, "it's inconvenient." During recess, Anna whispered, "You were really a colonel, retired. You prosecuted military crimes?" "For 20 years. When court resumed, I introduced the final piece. Recorded calls Vivian had made while Daniel was dying. Her voice crackled through the speakers. "If Margaret loved you, she'd give the house back." "You're sick, Daniel. You're not thinking clearly." Then Daniel, weak and tired, said, "Mom, stop." By the end of the week, the judge ruled in my favor. The petition was denied. The lake house remained mine. Outside, Anna hugged me hard. Weeks later, I met Vivian at a diner. She looked smaller without her pearls. She said she had been angry, that control had seemed safer than grief. I loved him too, I said. Tears came to her eyes. For the first time, I saw not a villain, but a frightened mother who had turned fear into cruelty. Winter settled over the lake house. I fixed the loose rail on the dock, painted the shutters, and let the quiet return. Alone on the porch, I watched moonlight spread across Smith Mountain Lake and felt something new. Not victory, peace.